So basically, I got a lot of beginning questions wrong. And what about the civil rights ones? Yeah, I got all the civil rights ones.
Alright, let's go over the civil rights. So this one, I Have a Dream, and that's just background knowledge.
Yeah.
And this is about the civil rights movement.
And then number 10
is affirmative action. A lot of conservative kind of advocates and critics usually use the whole like you have to judge them by the character, not by the color of their skin, as an argument against affirmative action.
I didn't know what affirmative action was, but I ruled out these two because those are overseen by Dr. King. And then Title IX was actually on this side. It said Title IX of the Education Amendment.
Okay. So that process of elimination.
Yeah, so I ruled that title, and then I just didn't.
And then this one, Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, all men are created equal. That's from the Declaration of Independence. Right?
And then
yeah, I got first one right.
12, yeah, that was just kind of from reading the passage.
I didn't study all the cases.
13, for 13, I kind of knew it was now, but at the same time, something I would suggest is when you're talking about women, look for an acronym that has the word women or female in it, which none of them do except for because when you make an organization, you're probably going to want to have the words women or feminine, and so the only one with W in it is well, we already knew that one. Something
because I remember that he mentioned Lincoln at the beginning of his speech, and I remember that Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, but then I was like, probably wrong.
It sounds like that was the Constitution that he was talking about, like rights, but you said the Constitution, like the Bill of Rights, so I see why it's
Yeah.
okay.
Why? You got the right card.
I didn't get it.
Did anyone get 12?
Yeah, I thought that was
Got 13.
anyone get 12 wrong?
Anyone get 13 right?
I mean, maybe.
Me too. The only reason why I guess C was the correct answer is because there's W and it has to do with women's organizations. I didn't, besides the NAACP, I did not know what any of the other groups meant. So, and none of the other ones have W in it, which usually would refer to women in this case. So that's why I guess that.
My topic is women, and like I kind of know about. I know that is a woman.
On the other hand, I was still not in the state of mind of reading this one. So like I was like NAACP, I was like, that's the organization for like African Americans, right? So I was like, oh, must be that one. Except I forgot that we were on the women's rights passage, and yeah, so it was my mistake.
So,
Well, what about 14 guys?
I have no idea.
And so throughout the passage talks about how women they feel like they're like drowning almost in like the normal everyday household task, and I was like, oh, it's a household. I took a piss.
Oh my god, shut up.
I was in that song all of yesterday.
What is title?
Title IX is for females, IX stands for 9. Title 9 in the education. One of those are.
guess it like denies it, right? Like it doesn't really have like workers, but they like
How come it wasn't?
You're scared of losing.
yeah.
We're not sure about that.
Well, isn't everybody?
Which one is the one that you?
Yeah, I guess that's from the first like, paragraph in the
I think that's just like great celebration.
Declaration of Independence. It's dope. It's like it's some quality stuff.
I once had a history teacher that described it as like the greatest breakup letter ever.
Yeah, no, if you want to quote something that sounds real patriotic.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing it back together in 5, 4,
I quoted it in an op-ed.
1. Okay, cool. So Jonathan, why don't we go ahead and take the first one? Tell us a little bit about your reasoning on that.
Okay, I entered question 9 solely based off prior knowledge. I knew that 3 other ones didn't really make sense in context. I know civil rights movement, or Martin Luther King was associated with being civil rights movement, and therefore it makes sense.
Okay, so it was association. It was the fact that, okay, you have MLK, you're looking at what the choices are, you say, oh, well, out of all of these different ones, I kind of recognize what they are, but civil rights definitely, and Martin Luther King. Sometimes, even on the APUSH exam, you will have questions that have this direct association that will point you to what is probably the correct answer. Even though I did get an interesting question from another student as we were doing this yesterday. It's like, Mr. Kelly, would Martin Luther King be considered like part of the counterculture in the 1960s? It's like, that's actually a really good question. You could make that argument, right? But it's a stronger argument to associate MLK with civil rights. Right? All right, let's move on to the next one. Quinn?
Okay, so I'm doing 10.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to read
Here, do I go for a 10 or 11?
number 10.
Okay, so this one I knew from prior knowledge because a lot of conservative figures I see a lot of times kind of bashing affirmative action because they say that it doesn't judge people based on their skills, and that's what the quote's about. So I could guess that that's what the answer was.
It's interesting. So that's an inverse way of figuring out what the correct answer was, right? But the specific quote that tipped you off was what?
The will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Right. And based on your knowledge of affirmative action, which you had said conservatives attacked because why?
Because they say that it doesn't judge people based on their the content of their character.
So I'll take hands on this. How can you explain what appears to be a paradox here? We know that affirmative action is the correct answer, and King is talking about this future where someone's going to get hired at a particular job not because of the color of their skin, but because of like what their character's like, what their values are like, of their work ethic or their commitment to being particularly good at a job. What did affirmative action actually seek to do, Mr. Kelly?
It's kind of reversed what happened because it gave a higher likelihood of admission for minority students versus like the general population, which was white. So it kind of flipped the table of what was happening for Martin Luther King to like a more power towards white people. It gave almost more power towards minorities for certain things. So it reversed what he like. I mean, it was not for what he believed in, which was like for what someone's moral or what their smarts and things like that versus just the color of their skin, things they can't change.
And that this policy would be a step in the direction of being able to do this. I mean, would affirmative action be a policy in place forever based on King's vision? No, because eventually you get to a point where a workforce was sufficiently diverse to reflect the rest of the population, right? So yeah, this one, again, this was one of 2 questions that was particularly tough in terms of connecting like the text to what the correct answer would be. Is there anybody else who had a different way of approaching this? Yes?
I immediately removed title IX because that wasn't until 1972.
And how did you know Title IX wasn't until 1972?
On the next side of the page, and the speech was in 1963.
Yeah, so you've got fact of speeches in 63. It's talking about something that is going to happen at about the same time or maybe even before, so that's going to mark that out. That's also going to mark this one out because that's 64, and this is 65. So that's another way that you could do it as well. Okay? By the way, ladies, does anybody know what Title IX is? Yeah?
Isn't that a thing about rape on college campuses and how it should be like, how they should go about it?
About, say again?
How they should go about like rape on college campuses?
That's part of it. Later, Title IX was actually used as a way to address that particular issue, but initially, yes, Mr. Stein.
Title IX is like the equality between women's and men's programs, so it's pretty big in sports, but it also is to like medical school. Like if you want to go to medical school, then they'll have like equal women versus men. It's about having like equal budgets, like the equal amount of spending and things like that. So if you have a big men's football team, you have to have a lot of equally large women's teams to like equal out, say, whatever the spending you're bringing in and things like that. So it's about like equality between men and women.
Which might have made Title IX a possible answer to it because it's based on quality of funding, but based on what Quinn had known with the prior knowledge, affirmative action was going to be something that was going to be more about hiring, which is more closely tied to what's in the text. All right. Let's go with number 11. Christian.
I've got A, and also like the part where he like says that we hold these truths to be like that all men are created equally. I knew that was from Declaration of Independence.
Okay. And what else? Yeah, that's right. That's definitely a direct quote from the Declaration of Independence. If you didn't know, if you couldn't associate, like if you were kind of at a loss on this particular question, what's in this from a punctuation standpoint that would get you to focus on a particular part of it? What's in this from a punctuation standpoint that would get you to focus on a particular part of it? And I'll take hands on this. I'd like to see someone else step up who was not stepped up yet. Want to take a crack at it, DNA? Okay, what in the punctuation of this passage tells you that it's been quoted from a document somewhere? Yes, Nia?
Quotation marks around V and equal.
Yep. So if you have a 70-word document and it's asking you a question that quotes it specifically from from another document, you can localize it right down to here. You hold these truths to be self-evident, right? So we've got like the specific document. Christian said, "Oh yeah, you know what? That quote that's from the Declaration of Independence for sure." He activated his prior knowledge. But is there someone else who used a different process to be able to get the correct answer? Is there another way to do this? Tom?
You could probably rule out Bill of Rights because that's like your right, so right to this, right to that. So that would probably be phrased differently than what's given in the quote. And then Emancipation Proclamation, I just know from prior knowledge, is the declaration that slaves are free, I believe, or they aren't slaves anymore, so we can rule that out.
Okay. So you've eliminated that one, you've eliminated that one, so it's down to, now you've gone from 25% to 50%, right? Yeah.
And also the Constitution has like amendments, and I wasn't sure like if one of those quotes are directly from an amendment that I recognize. So I just felt like it was part of an actual like passage, and I figured it would just be from the Declaration.
Is this quote, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, is that a big, wide, sweeping statement, or is that a very narrow legal statement? Big, wide, sweeping statement? if the Constitution is full of